Welcome back to the unofficial Squarespace Entrepreneur Podcast. My name is Amari Harabin, and if this is your first time listening, this show is all about building a business on Squarespace, especially businesses that serve the users of Squarespace. So if that sounds like you, then you're in at the right place. Today I'm talking with Heather Scott of Mission Twist Design, and Heather has a really unique offering for Squarespace template designers where if you don't want to do all the tutorial videos or that whole aspect of setting up and selling Squarespace templates, then she has something very unique for you. And a number of designers have already taken her up on this offer. So it's a really hot one that you might want to check out. So check out the show notes and let's get into this episode.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
If you don't mind introducing yourself and telling us just a little bit about your business and how you got here.
Sure thing. Yeah, I'm Heather Scott, and uh, kind of a winding road to get to where I am now. I've done a lot of different jobs, but always kind of wanted something that was just my own thing. And was selling a house in 2019, and we decided to do it by owner. And I made a website for it, and we had fun drone video that I got to put up, and making that website was so much fun. And I was talking to somebody later on, and I was just like, I wish I could do that as my job. That was the most fun I've had creating something in a long time.
Hmm.
And she was like, "Why don't you?" And I was like, "Nobody's going to pay me to do Squarespace sites." And she's like, "Yeah, they will." So just kind of snowballed from there. I took on my first beta clients and took Square's Secrets, Paige Brunton's course after that. And I just grew it really small. I wanted it to stay something that I was going to have fun with. And when I stopped having fun doing custom design, I switched to templates. I took Paige had a mini course about doing templates, and I was like, oh, yes, that's what I want to switch to. Um, kind of that situation where you make what you think is a really nice site and your client doesn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And wants all these changes, and you're like, "Oh, man, that okay if that's what you want, but oh." Uh, so templates was so much fun because I got to design exactly what I wanted something to look like, and,
Mm-hmm.
um, anyway, built out the whole system to do that with the tutorials, and I just wanted people who knew nothing about website design to be successful. So even if you were just this was a totally new concept to you, and you know you're a baby boomer, you could still get a website done. And I got a lot of great feedback about that.
Yeah.
Um, so then mm, last summer maybe I was talking to another designer, and she was like, man, I really want to do a template shop too, but the main thing holding me back is recording all these dang tutorials. Like, this is so overwhelming. And then she's like, it's not, one and done. You have to keep up with all the changes and re-record. And that
Mm-hmm.
just kind of sparked my brain into thinking like, well, I have this already done and people seem to really like it, and I have clients that are successful with it. So that got me started with the idea of a tutorial library for other designers.
Wow, I love the transition from just building a website to sell the house, right? Um
Yeah.
to a tutorial library for other designers who are also selling templates. How bring me back to that first website. Like um did it help sell the house?
I think so. I I don't know if it absolutely helped sell it, but it did sell in a market that it wasn't supposed to sell. Like, we lived kind of in a rural area that was very resort town-ish, and so
Mm-hmm.
nothing's supposed to sell in the winter because only people in the summer are looking for houses. But we sold in the dead of winter right after Christmas, and we'll just say that my website absolutely helped.
Yeah. Like I just like that idea of, a website, it's not indefinite, it's for a purpose, like and it's to sell a house, a big asset. Um, I think that's really cool, and I'm curious, like, how many other people out there do that. I know there's a big market for like, um, uh, vacation websites, for Airbnbs and vacation properties and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, and then other things like, weddings, obviously, that's a big one. But I've never really thought about just for selling a house.
Well, maybe
That's a
that's an idea for somebody out there that wants to start a template shop.
That's why
People
I'm
selling their
nudging
houses.
it. So, uh, you know, you mentioned um, going from custom design to templates. At what point was just the one-on-one thing less appealing, or what was it about templates that was like, you know what, this is the thing? I know you mentioned like the client, um, kind of rejecting like what you think is a really good design and being able to do that. But was there anything else that kind of pushed you over the fence?
Yeah, I think, partly my personality too, being kinda brought up a people pleaser, it was really hard for me to set real firm boundaries with clients, so, I mean, just I think it's called scope creep. That was
Hmm.
a real thing for me, and if people want, "Oh, I just need one more round of edits," or "I just need this," and I found it really, really difficult to just say no,
Yeah.
and I'm better at that now, but I think there was just enough about doing custom design that made it feel like a bit of a drag, and I was like, "This is supposed to be." This business has just been kinda my side project for years, and I
Mhm.
wanted to keep it fun. Like, I didn't wanna have one more thing in my life that started to feel like a chore.
Yeah.
Like, even if I was going to maybe take a step back in income or not grow as fast as I wanted, I was willing to do that because I wanted it to stay enjoyable.
Yeah, that's something that comes up a lot, and I've heard that a lot. And I think a part of that enjoyment is the freedom to create what you want to create, as opposed to adjusting and revising to someone's subjective standards. Um, and then being able to like appreciate the fact that there's people out there who want to buy your designs. um, how has the template shop or the template selling experience been for you? What's that been like?
Um, Along the same theme of me wanting to keep it enjoyable, I've grown it really slowly. And you know what? I've had the luxury of being able to do that because I haven't been relying on this as my full-time income. So,
Mhm.
for other people, they might not have the choice and they've got to, get outside of their comfort zone and do really hard things. But like for me in social media, I don't enjoy it at all.
Yeah.
So I know I could grow a whole lot faster if I were willing to really work on presence on social media. But that is not fun for me. And it's honestly not good for my mental health. So it was just like, that's off the table for me. And if everything grows slower, I'm okay with that.
I think that's so important, everything that you said about, prioritizing the enjoyment and prioritizing your mental health, really. Because I I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, so that's probably why I don't hear it a lot. But um just like what you said about the whole people pleasing thing, I think my experience on the freelancing side was similar, where it just was not good for my mental health. I just didn't have like the
Mm,
vocabulary or language for it at the time. But it would always result in these not good feeling experiences, right?
mm, yeah.
And being able to uh, kind of let go of that and have the digital product side of things gave me like time and space to figure myself out and develop the language that I needed to process these different things that were occurring in the service side of life,
Hmm.
so that I could serve better on this side of life. So I really appreciate that. The other thing that is really important, and like my experience was really dramatic, for lack of a better term, because I was in constant survival mode. So But in retrospect and where I'm at now, like starting a new venture, it's always a much funner experience when your life doesn't depend on it.
Yeah,
When your life depends on it, it can make you, there's great things come of that. But once you've been made or once you know yourself, like, I wouldn't subject myself to that, right? Like, have one of the things that I like to emphasize with the whole template launching thing is like setting expectations that make sense for you and your lifestyle, and not treating this like some type of like overnight like launch 0 to 1 million success type of thing, because that's just probably not going to be good for your mental health.
for sure.
um
Mm.
the the tutorial library, that's a thing that got my attention. I think when you first like pitched it in the Facebook group, I was like, oh, that looks like a really good idea. And then people have responded very positively to that. Tell me about that transition of, serving your peers in a sense.
I think I'm having more fun now than I have ever had, and I attribute that to marketing how I really wanna market. I haven't been able to quite put my finger on, like, okay, what is it that's really gonna fit my personality or fit my what I feel my strengths are, and
Mm,
this feels like I'm just connecting with other people. I'm meeting you and talking to lots of other Squarespace designers and people who train Squarespace designers, and that has been so much fun. And
yeah.
so I think I've just kind of gotten into a sweet spot of like, I really just like getting to know other people. And here I have this thing that might help you, and that's it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it really is that simple. Um, and it does sound like very pleasing to be able to have that experience and get there. Um, what advice would you have, if any? I don't even know if that's a good question anymore, but I often do this thing where I talk to my younger self and try to refine what I would say, right? It's never just a one and done thing. It's always an iterative thing of like, how would I guide myself through this better? What would you say to yourself back in 2019? Maybe you would have said the same thing your friend said to you, but like, what would you have said to yourself then, when considering or exploring this opportunity?
Yeah, that's a space I can lose a lot of time in trying to think about what to go back and do different. Um, for me, I feel like I did waste a fair amount of time trying to fit other people's mold of how you do this business.
Mm,
So at one point, I hired a business coach, and because I'm a semi introvert. I really love people, but I am an introvert at heart. So getting out there and trying to sell things or market is awful.
mhm.
So this business coach was telling me all these things to do, and everything I would try to force myself to do, I just came away feeling yucky, like, did not like any of it. And I think if I could go back, I would just say, "Don't even bother with that. Like,
Mhm.
make your own way." Yeah, there's paths that other people can follow, but you're probably not the personality to pull that off. So, I feel like I kinda wasted quite a lot of time, energy, and money on things that were just never gonna work for me because it's just not in my nature.
Yeah, it's really tough to figure that out when you're in it because it's like there, something has to change, right? You have to grow in some way and gain some skill. So that's why it's like, all right, well, maybe I should try something that someone's proposing that's, knows what
Mhm.
they're doing. Um, but also that self-awareness that like there are certain parts of ourselves that don't change and that are going to remain consistent and true, like no matter what skills we gain along the way.
Mhm.
And I think that's really interesting, especially um, as it relates to marketing, where you have to be present and you have to be communicating something with people. Figuring that out. in a way that's like you is not easy. It's not easy, but it's definitely worth it. I could say
Mhm.
I'm still figuring it out. One of the perks of this podcast, I've been reflecting. It's now like 6 years since I started, and it doesn't seem like that because there's not like hundreds of episodes. But it's been a seasonal practice of talking to people who are in this space and who are pursuing the same thing and who have similar stories, and trying to connect the dots and draw the threads. And I find your story really inspiring in this way because I think it pulls together a lot of the reoccurring themes that show up as it relates to pursuing a Squarespace business. Um, Switching gears real quick, the Squarespace is just announced some news that um, they've been uh, they've been taken over by private equity, or not taken over. I don't want to misquote, but there's been a big $7 billion deal 2 years ago. Squarespace went public. Um, do you like pay attention to this kind of news? Does it excite you in any way, or is it just like whatever?
Uh, I could definitely be somebody to go down the rabbit hole of, like, what could this mean, and try to predict it, but again, probably not great for my mental health. I I would say at first glance, this, isn't an exciting change for me. It's more of probably like, "Uh-oh." Um, but, I mean, hopefully, this will mean good things for Squarespace, but I just feels like time will tell. I have
Yeah.
no idea. How about you?
Yeah, I'm really excited because I don't know, I just love change, I realized. Like for me,
Really?
yeah, because to me that's when there's always opportunity. There's always new opportunity and change.
Mm,
And when things are like static for a while, there's like the opportunity starts to diminish. And so like I
man, I'm
I
gonna
was
have to embrace that more.
it's
Gonna have to
just
rub off on me.
I've had to learn it over time. But like for example, when Squarespace went public, I was really excited because it was like, oh, okay, cool. Now we're gonna get some insight, right? Like as a public investor, now we can kind of understand a little bit more about the direction that the company's going in. Um, and as a circle person, there's a bit more transparency about like what's going on. It's a really fun transition. Um, and now I expect there to be some sort of cultural change, where now that they don't have to be publicly disclosing their business anymore, there might be some, more strategic moves that happen long term. So I'm excited. And I think
Well, that
like,
makes me feel a little better.
yeah, I think over the next 10 years, like 10 years ago, I wasn't thinking, yeah, you're going to be, you know, still running the Squarespace business 10 years from now. Like that was not in my purview. But now that I'm here, it's like, okay, well, if I was going to, stick around for another decade, right? Assuming someone is just getting started today, right? Like if I was going to stick around for another decade, where would I focus? What would I kind of anchor myself to? Like 10 years ago,
Mm,
I was anchoring myself to what we're talking about today, templates, right? There wasn't any at the time, but just the natural order of things, right? Um, the desire would emerge and continue to emerge to want to customize what you're given. And so at this point, it's like, well, people are going to want to keep selling, right? And Squarespace has positioned themselves around the commerce side of things for a few years now, and but there's a big lag behind between the positioning and what the product is able to do right now. So I imagine that that gap is what's going to be filled in the next decade, right? So the position and the promise is that if you have an idea that you want to bring to life and you want to sell on the internet, Squarespace should be where you go, right? That's like the brand vision, in my opinion. But there are tons and millions of cases where people just can't do that for their business and their idea. Um, so I think bridging that gap is what unlocks the millions of new customers for Squarespace. And filling that that commerce feature set, I think is really, really what's going to do that. And these are just my personal private thoughts that I'm happy to share here.
Not private anymore.
Yeah, I know, right? Um, so Heather, it's been really great and fun talking to you, and getting to know, your business. What's it been like since launching the Mission Twist tutorial library?
It's been really fun. I I just really love how it has opened up an avenue for me to talk with my peers, and I just find that so enjoyable. It's very, very different than communicating with people who want to build a website. It's like you
Hmm.
already speak the same language. It's just a very different dynamic having other designers as my customers as opposed to people who want to build a website.
Yeah.
I'm finding it really fun.
Yeah, I think like that model is what I've always kind of pursued of, okay, how do I to serve the people who are doing the same thing that I'm doing?
Yeah.
And I've found naturally the best way to do that is to share what you're doing. And so in real life, I know public speaking is like a challenge for a lot of people. And I think the same challenge translates to the internet, because it's like, well, now it's super public. And you can't just like leave the room. Like whatever you say kind of stays for a bit. Um,
Mhm.
so lately I've been thinking about, well, how do you like grow from that? And it's like, well, um, what I've tried to practice over the past few years or so is almost like it's weird. I hate to say it like this, but like almost a detachment from myself where like uh I feel like I'm going in the deep end, but like I'm not attached to uh the judgment per se, like the idea of being judged. That's where I'm getting at. So like I feel like now it's like, okay, whatever. Like I can scale what I'm sharing from a very personal place or a private place, and there's no more fear that um any judgment can hurt me because I've actually detached myself from what I'm sharing, if that makes sense.
Wow.
Right? So I think for me it's been time, like time is giving me some separation where it's like, okay, the the real dramatic challenges are past, right? But they're still real, right? They still exist, for somebody at this point in time, but I can still connect from that place without feeling what I felt when I was there, right? So like I no longer feel the shame or the embarrassment or the guilt or any of the feelings of like past struggle. Um, but I could still feel those feelings, So it's like, okay, now I can share that, and there's no harm that's possible, and it can hopefully help someone who's going through something. So I say all of that to say, like, from a marketing perspective, like that's to me that's marketing, right? It's like uh, you're communicating a struggle that someone is currently having, but you're also communicating the fact that there's another side to that struggle that you're ultimately able to deliver on. And I think that works in a peer minded business because you are perpetually transmuting your struggle or your problem into a solution for the next person, and it's a completely different dynamic than someone on the other side of the table who isn't experiencing what you're experiencing or won't experience it, and you're not experiencing what they're experiencing. So oftentimes like this disconnect, um, when you're serving clients who have never gone through, who you've never shared like a common experience. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, that was my,
You picked that apart perfectly. That I hadn't thought deep enough about it, um, but you described that perfectly. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. I've been thinking about it a long time. Trying to unpack this. Um, well, Heather, thank you. It is Mental Health Awareness Month. I typically don't announce the month, but I've got a partnership going on. Um, I'll include it in the show notes below. So if you happen to be a therapist or you know therapists who are looking for a Squarespace website template, there happens to be a huge number of templates for therapists. But I've got a discount code with this particular show for the ultimate template for therapists. So I'll share that with this episode, as well as Heather's Mission Twist library service.
Thanks so much, Omari. It was so great to chat with you.
Likewise, take care.